You know that sinking feeling when you sign a contract and only later realize you were misled? It's just awful. Today, we're going to break down exactly what's happening there, what your options are, and what the law calls misrepresentation. I mean, think about it. You sign up for a service, you buy a car, you take a job, and then you find out a key piece of information you were told just isn't true. It's so frustrating, right? And you can feel completely stuck. But here's the thing. You probably have more power in that situation than you think.
All right, so let's get into the weeds. What is misrepresentation legally speaking? Well, at its core, it's an untrue statement of fact from one person to another that, and this is the important part, induces them to sign a contract. In other words, that false statement was the thing that tipped you over the edge and made you say, okay, I'm in.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because not all untrue statements are treated the same way. In the eyes of the law, it all comes down to the mindset of the person making that statement. So we're going to break down the three main flavors this comes in: the deliberate lie, the careless mistake, and the honest error.
First up, we've got the big one, the most serious of the bunch, fraudulent misrepresentation. This is exactly what it sounds like, a deliberate lie. This isn't just someone being wrong, it's someone knowing they're wrong and saying it anyway.
So what actually counts as fraud? Well, there are two main paths to get there. The first one's obvious. The person flat out knew what they were saying was false. But the second one is a really key legal idea. They acted with reckless indifference. Think of it like this. They didn't know for sure if it was true, but they didn't bother to check either. They just didn't care. And legally, that's just as bad as an outright lie.
Because fraud is so serious, the law gives you some really powerful tools. First, you get the option to rescind the contract, which is just a fancy way of saying you can cancel the whole thing. Poof, it's gone. And on top of that, you can sue for damages to get financial compensation for any losses that lie caused you.
Okay, so let's move away from deliberate lies to something that's maybe a little more common, a careless mistake. This is what we call negligent misrepresentation, and you see it pop up a lot when you're supposed to be getting professional advice.
Now, to prove negligence, the law has a kind of three-part test. First, did that person owe you a duty of care? Think about an advisor or a consultant. Their whole job is to give you accurate info. Second, did they mess up and breach that duty by being careless? And third, did that carelessness directly cause you to lose money or suffer some other kind of harm?
And check this out. This is the really surprising part. The remedies you get for negligence, they are exactly the same as for fraud. You can both cancel the contract and sue for damages. This tells you something really important. The law takes a professional's carelessness just as seriously as it takes a deliberate lie.
So we've covered the lie, and we've covered the careless mistake. But what if it was just an honest-to-goodness error? Well, that brings us to our third and final category, innocent misrepresentation. This is when somebody tells you something false, but they genuinely believed it was true when they said it.
This quote really just nails the whole idea. The magic words here are good faith. The person wasn't trying to trick you, they weren't being sloppy, they were just mistaken. It happens.
And this is where the options change in a huge way. You can still rescind the contract, which makes total sense because you were still misled, right? But, and this is a big but, you cannot sue for damages. The law basically says if it was a truly honest mistake, you can't get financial compensation.
Okay, that was a whirlwind tour of the three types. Now, let's put it all together. This is where the rubber meets the road, and it's really the main takeaway from this whole explainer.
When you boil it all down, it comes down to one simple thing: intent. What was going on in the head of the person who made the statement? Were they lying, were they careless, or were they honestly mistaken? The answer to that question is what determines whether you can get money back.
And this chart is your cheat sheet. It lays it all out perfectly. Just look at the rescind contract column. It's yes all the way down. So in almost any case where you were misled, you have an exit ramp to cancel the deal. But the sue for damages column, that's where the real story is. You only get a yes for fraud and negligence. When it's an innocent mistake made in good faith, no damages for you.
So, to put it as simply as possible, your power to get your money back for any losses you suffered rests entirely on proving the other party's state of mind. It's not enough to show that what they said was false. You have to show they were either being deceptive or professionally careless. We've spent all this time talking about your options after a problem has already happened. But all of this points to a much more powerful idea, right?
Knowing just how critical intent is, what's the single most important question you should ask to verify a claim before you even pick up a pen? It's definitely something to think about next time you're about to sign on that dotted line. Thanks for watching.